This is crazy, as one New York Rangers defenseman is going to have much more responsibility this season with the dynamic of the lineup quickly changing. That and a former New York Ranger spoke out, and what he had to say, some New York Rangers fans are going to be fired up. We're going to break all of that down, but before we do, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 70% of you now watching our videos are not actually subscribed to the channel, so if you want to do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers. And I just want to take a moment to say that, yes, my video yesterday, at the time of uploading it, Patrik Laine did get traded to the Montreal Canadiens promptly, like immediately after I uploaded that video. So it was a good idea in theory, or maybe it wasn't. You know, some people let me know in the comments that maybe that trade wasn't a good idea, but you know, it happened right after. There was a trade in pending, and it went to the Montreal Canadiens. But without further ado, we'll get into the video today, which of course is about Zac Jones and his increased role with the team heading into next season. We'll get into that, as well as a former Ranger. I'm not going to, you know, disclose who it is yet. Stay tuned for that later in the video. But to get right into it, Zac Jones is going to get a long look in training camp. And obviously that, you know, may make you believe that he could. There is a possibility of him going back to Hartford in the AHL, but I just don't think that is a possibility at this point. I think he's going to make the team, and he's going to be a regular NHLer this year. And Peter Laviolette is giving Zac Jones every opportunity to make the Rangers opening night roster. And of course, this is from Remy, who we've seen before, has done some great work. And just a few more tidbits from this article. We'll get into his stats as well and why I believe he'll make the team. But this past year, with injuries plaguing the Rangers, of course, we know, you know, Jacob Trouba was hurt. There was a bunch of other injuries as well, plaguing the Rangers blue line specifically. Jones played a total of 31 games and took full advantage. The 23-year-old showed flashes of his high potential while he recorded 2 goals, 7 assists, and 9 points. And one thing to keep in mind as well is this player is 23 years old at this point now. Obviously still considered a prospect, I guess, by some. But at the same time, he is 23 years old and should make the team this year. I think it's time that he make the team. The skill is there. We know he can take on, you know, the workload. He played 31 games last year. I would like to see him as a full-time NHLer this year. And he's shown what he's capable of at the highest level of competition, something that should excite all Rangers fans going into 2024, 2025. It's time for Jones to prove he is prepared to take the next step in his career and become an NHL regular with the Rangers. And that's what I'm looking for this season, for Zac Jones to take that step. I believe this player this season should be a regular NHLer. This player, you know, barring injury, shouldn't come out of the lineup. I truly don't believe that. I think he's good enough. I think he showed last year in the 31 game, you know, small sample size, relatively small sample size. He showed that he can hang, right? I think he can play in the NHL full time this year, and it's going to be exciting to see what he does in the NHL this season. We'll get into some quotes and some stats from Peter Laviolette, and of course, Zac Jones' stats. This is from Peter Laviolette. He had an interview with NHL.com, and he went on to say he's worked his tail off every practice and every day, Laviolette said. He's gotten an opportunity to jump back in. He's waited. He's been patient, worked hard to get the opportunity, and he's jumped back in and played excellent again. And I think that's something I'm going to cut back here just to give a quick thought, because we'll get back into that quote because there's some interesting tidbits as well. But I think that's interesting. He's kind of waited, and of course there's 31 games. They were broken up too, right? So he's waited for his opportunities, continued to work hard, and he hasn't gotten discouraged, and he's continuing to put in good work. And I think Laviolette is seeing that. I think Rangers fans are seeing that this is a player who wants it, who, you know, really wants to be a regular in the NHL, and, you know, he was ready whenever called upon, right? So I love that. I love that from Zac Jones. That is great stuff, and we'll get back into the quote here for just a second as well. Zac Jones got better every single time he played for us, Laviolette said, via, of course, NHL.com. He had to bring that out in himself every time we called his number, and it wasn't on a consistent basis, and that's something I just mentioned as well. I mean, he was ready whenever they called him, right? And I think that something has to be said about that as well. When he got the opportunity, he was fantastic. Certainly, he's going to get a long look in training camp, and I think that long look doesn't mean, you know, they might send him back. I think at this point in time, that long look means where's he going to fit in our lineup? He could actually play higher than some suspect. If you go to Daily Faceoff right now, which of course is a little crazy because some of the players are not even on the team, right? Some players have been traded or moved on from, and They're still on the roster, but if you go to daily faceoff, he's kind of penciled in that, third pairing left D spot. And I think he can maybe play higher. You got Lindgren there as well. A couple other pieces, some right shot defensemen. Of course, you want to keep the left shots on the left side with Zac Jones being a left shot. So obviously he could start the year on the third pairing, but I think that long look is just kind of, how can this player fit in? What other roles can he take on? Is there, potential for him to maybe play on the power play a second unit or something, right? Like maybe further down the line. I'm not saying, to start the season, but I believe that long look is not him being sent back to the AHL. I believe he's going to be a full-time NHLer with the New York Rangers this year. He's put in the work, and we'll get into his stats here in just a second as well. 31 games last year, as we talked about. He had 9 points, and his usage was pretty high considering he was a rookie and kind of just his first crack at the NHL and the NHL lineup. So, really good numbers here, I think, from this defenseman, and, scored 2 goals. He had a great season. When he was called upon, like Laviolette said, he played really well, and he's still relatively young, but like I mentioned earlier in the video, it's time. I think at 23, going into your 24-year-old season, it's time for you to make the team full-time. This is the jump. This is the next step you need to take, and I'm looking for Zac Jones to do it this year, and it's going to be exciting. But to move on to another topic, a former Ranger came out and voiced his displeasure with his departure from the team, and that, of course, I'm talking about Barclay Goodrow. There was some this, of course, from Remy as well. Some heated conversations earlier this offseason with him being placed on waivers. So Barclay Goodrow has turned the page on the Rangers after, I guess, being upset earlier in the offseason. The situation between Barclay Goodrow and the New York Rangers this summer wasn't pretty. After a really solid playoff performance, and honestly it was from Goodrow. I mean, he outpaced himself in the regular season in the playoffs, and the Rangers decided to buy out his contract and attempt to clear space. We know that didn't happen. He ended up being put on waivers. It was going to happen anyway, I believe, around that time. There was a lot going on around that time. It was right before the draft as well, and this is from the Sharks coach, which, of course, Barclay Goodrow is now with the San Jose Sharks. We talked for a while, and he's in a good place, and he's excited. He's obviously, he's obviously been in San Jose before, and he knows some of the guys. He and Logan Couture are really close, so that helps. I think he's kind of turned the page on New York for now. This is a business that's part of life, and he's responded great. He's all bought in, and I'm excited because he's a big piece of our team, and I think he's excited too. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, hopefully no hard feelings towards the New York Rangers, but one thing I found interesting in that quote is this is a business. And when, we were talking about it months ago when Chris Drury made this move, that it was ruthless, and you have to make more ruthless moves. We talk about the Vegas Golden Knights, how their approach to winning is ruthless, and it paid off for them. They won the Stanley Cup. So you have to be ruthless in your decision making if you are the New York Rangers and you want to win a Stanley Cup, right? That's the ultimate goal this year. So I think more of that. Obviously, you want to make sure your players, your top guys, are comfortable and can perform at the highest level. But if you're not getting the results, time to make some hard decisions, and Barclay Goodrow just simply didn't fit in the plans moving forward with the salary cap structure the Rangers have moving into next year, because some big contracts are on the horizon, but it's going to be interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments of Barclay Goodrow moving on from the New York Rangers, moving to the San Jose Sharks, and what you think of Zac Jones. Is he going to be a regular NHLer this season? I think so. I think it's time to take that next step. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.